The smell hit before the truth did, and by the time people realized what was happening, it was already too late to ignore. Because this wasn't just a move. This wasn't just a quiet relocation. This felt like a message. Locals didn't first notice the moving vans. They didn't notice the security upgrades. They didn't even notice the quiet transformation of Marsh Farm. They noticed the smell. A thick, overwhelming, impossible to ignore stench drifting across the fields, the kind that clings to the air and refuses to leave. And when they followed it, what they found turned an already controversial royal move into something that people are still whispering about. Over the course of just a few days, more than 20 tankers rolled in and out of the land behind the farmhouse. Not once, not twice, again and again. Each one unloading massive quantities of liquid manure until the total reached a staggering 150,000 gallons. And here's where it gets uncomfortable: the timing. Because this wasn't happening months ago. This wasn't some distant agricultural routine. This was happening right as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor was moving in. Right as the trucks arrived. Right as the gates were installed. Right as the final touches were being completed. Coincidence? Or something far more deliberate? The official explanation is clean, polished, almost too perfect. Organic farming, sustainable practices, nutrient-rich soil treatment, a modern agricultural system designed to keep the estate environmentally efficient. But when you strip away the formal language, what you're left with is this: 150,000 gallons of manure, dumped, spread, saturating the land, just days before a disgraced royal figure steps into his new life. And suddenly, people aren't just talking about farming anymore. They're asking questions. Because while all of this was unfolding, something else was happening quietly, almost too quietly. 3 large removal vans appeared at Marsh Farm. Not ordinary vans, not rushed, chaotic relocation vehicles. These belonged to Gander and White, a company known for transporting priceless art, rare collections, and high-value items. Which means one thing: he wasn't just moving. He was bringing pieces of his past with him, fragments of a life that used to be untouchable. Inside those vans, speculation exploded. Priceless artwork, items once displayed at Royal Lodge, possibly even pieces linked to the royal collection itself. But here's the part that makes everything feel off. While those expensive, carefully handled items were being transported with precision and care, outside, fields soaked in manure, air thick with the smell, an environment that feels worlds away from royal luxury. It's almost symbolic. And the transformation of Marsh Farm only deepens the mystery. Because this wasn't some neglected farmhouse suddenly being used out of necessity. No, this place was prepared, carefully, intensively, deliberately. Builders had been working for weeks, repainting rooms, laying carpets, reshaping interiors, redesigning the landscape. Then the gates, large, wooden, security-focused, not decorative, defensive, installed at the entrance like a statement, like a line being drawn. Because whatever this move is, it's not temporary. Everything about it screams permanence. And that's where the real story begins to shift. Because Andrew isn't just changing houses, he's changing worlds. Gone is the 30-bedroom Royal Lodge, the space, the grandeur, the legacy. In its place, a 5-bedroom farmhouse, surrounded not by manicured gardens and polished halls, but by working farmland, organic systems, and now, unmistakably, the lingering aftermath of those tankers. And according to what insiders are quietly saying, he is not taking this well, not even close. Because this isn't just downsizing, this is reduction, a forced confrontation with limits he hasn't faced in decades. And it shows in the smallest, almost painfully symbolic details. His belongings, once spread across massive rooms, now have nowhere to go. Decisions had to be made. What stays? What goes? What gets left behind? Even his personal collections weren't spared. His famous collection of teddy bears, once numbering around 72, has reportedly been reduced to just 1 making the move. 72 down to 1. If that doesn't tell you everything about what this move represents, nothing will. And it doesn't stop there. The staff, or rather, the lack of them, the full household support he once relied on, gone, replaced with limited occasional assistance, if that. And for someone used to a life of constant service, immediate response, and controlled environments, that shift isn't just uncomfortable. It's destabilizing, frustrating, almost humiliating. And then comes the final layer, the one that no amount of renovation or security can fix, the reaction. Because while all of this is happening behind gates and closed doors, the outside world is watching. And they're not exactly welcoming. In nearby King's Lynn, locals have been vocal. Some are distant, cold, indifferent. Others, far more direct, talking about accountability, justice, consequences. There's no warmth here, no quiet acceptance, just a sense that something unresolved has followed him and settled right alongside him. And through it all, one thing remains eerily consistent: silence. No public appearance, no statement, no acknowledgement. Since returning after being questioned by police, everything has been happening behind the scenes. Moves, changes, adjustments, all without a word, which only makes the entire situation feel even more controlled and even more suspicious. Because when everything is this quiet, this precise, this carefully managed, it raises one unavoidable question. Is this really just a relocation? Or is this something else entirely? Because when you step back and look at the full picture, a disgraced royal figure, a forced move, a dramatic downgrade in lifestyle, a cold public reception, and right at the center of it all, 150,000 gallons of manure spread across the land like an unmissable statement. You start to wonder, was this about convenience? Or was it about positioning? Was it practical? Or was it symbolic? And most importantly, what does it say about where he stands now? Because this doesn't feel like a fresh start. It feels like something else, something quieter, something colder, something final. And here's where the story stops feeling like coincidence and starts feeling like choreography. Because when you line up every detail, the timing, the scale, the silence, the setting, it creates a pattern that is impossible to ignore. Think about it. This isn't just a man moving homes. This is a man being repositioned, carefully, quietly, completely. And the deeper you look, the more it feels like every piece was placed exactly where it needed to be. The estate itself had already been undergoing a transformation long before Andrew ever stepped foot near Marsh Farm. A shift toward organic farming, initiated years earlier, had turned the land into a working, living system: cattle, crops, natural fertilizers, and a strict commitment to sustainability. On paper, it sounds progressive, modern, responsible. But now place Andrew right in the middle of it, not beside it, not observing it, inside it, surrounded by fields actively being fertilized, by tractors, tankers, and agricultural cycles that don't pause for anyone, not even a former senior royal. And suddenly, that eco-friendly initiative feels like something else entirely, because the scale matters. 500 cattle producing the manure that feeds the land, a system so large it required a future plan, a slurry lagoon the size of 3 Olympic swimming pools, already approved earlier this year. 3 Olympic pools. Let that sink in. This isn't a small, quiet countryside adjustment. This is industrial-scale farming. And Andrew is now living right next to it, which brings us back to that smell. Because while officials may call it organic practice, locals experience it very differently. It lingers, it spreads, it doesn't respect boundaries. And for someone used to carefully controlled environments, filtered air, manicured surroundings, absolute privacy, this is more than just an inconvenience. It's a constant reminder, a reminder of where he is now, and perhaps where he is no longer. Because the contrast is brutal. Royal Lodge, expansive, private, untouched by the outside world. Marsh Farm, exposed, functional, tied directly to the land and everything that comes with it. It's not just a downgrade, it's a shift in identity. And insiders suggest that this is exactly where the tension lies. Because Andrew didn't just lose space, he lost control. Control over his environment, control over his image, control over how and where he exists within the royal framework. And for someone described repeatedly as entitled, that loss hits differently. It's not subtle, it's not gradual, it's immediate, and it's everywhere, even inside the house. Because while the farmhouse has been renovated, refreshed, and upgraded, it still cannot replicate what came before. There are limits now. Physical limits, rooms that cannot expand, walls that cannot accommodate everything he once owned, spaces that force decisions instead of allowing indulgence. And those decisions leave traces. Empty spaces where something used to be, missing pieces that couldn't make the transition, a life edited down to fit into something smaller, something tighter, something controlled. But perhaps the most revealing detail isn't inside the house, it's outside it. Because the land doesn't just surround him, it defines him now. Every time those tankers pass, every time the fields are treated, every time that smell returns, it reinforces the same unspoken message. This is your reality now, and the public is watching, not from a distance, but closely. Because this move hasn't gone unnoticed. In fact, it has triggered a reaction that is as telling as the move itself. There's no celebration, no curiosity fueled by admiration. Instead, there's distance, skepticism, a quiet but unmistakable judgment hanging in the air. Residents nearby have made it clear they don't want involvement. Some want separation, others want accountability. And that changes everything. Because relocation in most cases offers a reset, a chance to start over. But this feels like containment, a placement rather than a choice. A situation where the location isn't just about living, it's about about limiting. And then there's the silence again. Because through all of this, the move, the speculation, the visible transformation, Andrew has said nothing. No defense, no explanation, no attempt to reshape the narrative, just absence. And in a situation like this, silence doesn't calm things down. It amplifies them. Because without answers, people fill the gaps. And what they're filling them with right now is suspicion. Was the manure timing really just agricultural scheduling? Or was it symbolic? A message wrapped in routine? A statement disguised as farming? Something that says more without ever needing to be said? Because if this were just about practicality, the timing wouldn't feel so precise. If this were just about farming, the scale wouldn't feel so overwhelming. If this were just about relocation, the environment wouldn't feel so deliberate. And yet, here we are, a former senior royal, living in a farmhouse, surrounded by an operation that is impossible to ignore, while the public watches, while insiders whisper, while the silence grows heavier by the day. And somewhere in all of this, there's a deeper shift happening, one that goes beyond property, beyond location, beyond even reputation. It's a shift in position within the structure, within the hierarchy, within the story itself. Because once upon a time, Andrew was at the center of it all. Now, he's on the edge, quietly placed, carefully managed, surrounded not by status, but by distance. And maybe that's the real story. Not the smell, not the tankers, not even the move, but what it represents. Because when you strip away every layer, what's left is a single, uncomfortable truth. This wasn't just about finding him a new home. It was about redefining where he belongs. And the question that lingers, the one no one is answering, the one hanging in the air just like that unmistakable smell, is this where the story ends for him? Or is this just the beginning of something even more revealing? Because if this was meant to be quiet, it didn't work. Not even close.